Let's bomb Russia!
After this performance, election campaigning in Britain will never be quite the same again.
Huples Cat. This is going to be video 1 of a talk that the CDC did on first responders and emergency planners in America dealing with a single 10 kiloton nuclear bomb event. However, it's scalable and it's full of very useful information. In a world where bomb Russia has become like a crazy thing that a lot of people are saying, I do want to plug secret stuff right now.
You shouldn't be looking at 100% prepper channels, and probably, I don't know, 90-95% are just full of shit. It's like propaganda. And you're poisoning your brain by doing so. What you should be is opening your mind up. You should read a book at least once a week, and not about prepping.
And get some entertainment that has got nothing to do with nuclear war or the news. We live in very, very horrific times. Hopefully those times won't get any more horrific.
So I'm here to talk about a nuclear detonation. It's kind of a big topic, I know. I don't know what perfect looks like. If we do everything right after a nuclear detonation, we got no idea what that looks like. And it's no wonder. If you went online, you could find preparedness guidance that would say, you should shelter. And other preparedness guidance say, you should evacuate. So if we can't answer the basic question of should you run or should you hide when you see a mushroom cloud, how can we possibly prepare?
Stay home, get home, bug out temporarily, inch bag, never coming home bags. All of these ideas preppers have, and all of them they have very fixed ideas on, depending on what they're able to do or what they have to do. Their way, often in prepping, is the right way. And unfortunately, I am actually also not immune to this confirmational bias.
Hello everybody, Huples Cat. So I was making up my bug out back using all the videos online, and a couple of things wrong with it. First off, I couldn't put my toolkit in. Second off, my cordage and my fire started. And I don't have any food. So I think, basically, as a design for a bug out bag, this is kind of, it needs to be rethought. Anyway, that's Huples Cat. Au revoir, pray for me.
Nobody really has a plan for the aftermath of a nuclear detonation. In particular, what we were looking at originally was this low-yield, ground-level nuclear terrorism event. And in fact, there's a lot of uncertainty about what the response needs even are, and what the role of federal, state, and local agencies is.
A nuclear bomb, singular or a nuclear war, multiple bombs, is too big, too crazy, too insane to cope with or even comprehend. And we have no real experience of this, certainly in modern times. So it's no surprise federal, state, individual responses at best ambiguous and at worst definite. And I say that for a very specific reason. You have to be flexible in your plans for this. Having a definite, I will definitely do this type plan, I think is probably one of the least worst things you can do. The worst thing you can do is have no plan at all. But having a strong, detailed plan without flexibility in the event of something so ambiguous as a nuclear war strikes me as problematic.
I get two basic reactions. One is, it doesn't matter, we're all dead anyway.
This is a very common response, even in prepping. Sadly, and it is sadly, most of us will not die in the blink of an eye at the start of a nuclear war.
And the other one is, nuclear detonation, that's a Fed thing, right? Wait for the guys in green to show up and save the day.
If you're thinking, I, my family, where I am, I might survive, injured or not injured, the outbreak of a nuclear war, even if it's a massive nuclear war, you're probably on the right lines. And if you think, well, I probably won't get any help at all for days to weeks to months to years, depending on if it's a single event or multiple events, you're on the right lines. Bearing in mind, a single event without knowledge, without warning, right now, knocks out cell phones, communications for a period of days to weeks in the area affected. You would have no way of knowing if it was a terrorist dirty bomb or whether it in fact was a nuclear strike from Russia. That would be a very, very odd situation to find yourself in, where literally you are acting like it is Armageddon apocalypse, but it turns out a few hours to a few days later, no, a missile blew up by accident on a trailer truck going through a town close by, and in fact the world has not gone up in a nuclear bomb, and you, in fact, have acted like it has. Be careful about stuff like that. If you overprime yourself to respond, you may respond dangerously for others and yourself.
Well, unfortunately, both of those reactions lead to an apathy in planning that could get hundreds of thousands of people killed or injured.
This is sadly true, as we'll find out in this lecture. It's a really good lecture, and that's why I'm covering it. But he is right here. If your view is, I'll die anyway, or Biden/Trump will solve this and not let it happen, or if it happens we'll make sure I will be okay, I think is sadly delusional. Complacency and definitive actions that aren't flexible in any catastrophe make you a liability to yourself, your family and others around you. And I think the specifics of a nuclear war make that even more so.
Why? The critical decisions, the most important life-saving decisions, are those made in the first few minutes and hours of the event.
0 to 60 minutes after the injury is the golden hour of trauma. Now if any of you guys have guns out there, or girls, you know about the golden hour, right? Because you're a gun owner and you're responsible. So you know about the golden hour. The actions you take or do not take in the first 60 minutes of the explosion really will decide what's going to happen to you for the rest of your life and how long or short that will be. During the golden hour is not the time to start reading these sorts of books. It's not the time to try and go online to figure out what you should do. It's not the time to realise you don't understand what an alpha, beta or gamma radiation is. You actually have to understand basic science, and I'm not going to give you a primer on basic science because you have the World Wide Web. Science is a major prep for nuclear war. If you ignore science and you try and prep for nuclear war, you're probably going to die.
Let's walk through a scenario. Since we're in Washington, D.C., I thought I'd take 1600 K Street, just down the street from here, and we're going to simulate what a 10 kiloton nuclear detonation might do to this city. So the first thing to understand is that a 10 kiloton nuclear detonation gives off a bright flash of light, the equivalent of 1,000 suns if you were standing a mile away. 10 kilotons is about the same as 5,000 Oklahoma City truck bombs all going off at once. We're going to use real weather from noon on February 14th, 2009. Happy Valentine's Day. And we're going to use casualty numbers based on workday population in DC. Now, we've done all this modeling and analysis using some advanced techniques. After that workshop, we really got the scientific community together, all the federal agencies who had some understanding of what a nuclear detonation might mean. And we came together to try and solve this problem. The first thing to understand is a 10 kiloton nuclear detonation is probably going to destroy just about everything out to half a mile. It's considered the severe damage zone. The next zone is the moderate damage zone. This goes from half a mile to a mile. Still a lot of destruction, but more survivors than fatalities. This is actually a focus of our emergency response because the people in that moderate damage zone are going to need help.
And of course the people in the severe zone are either dead or dying horribly, so there ain't no point even looking. Look, you need to be nowhere near the moderate zone or even the mild zone of a nuclear detonation. This is now going to show you the effects at the very outer edge of the moderate zone from a 10 kiloton nuclear explosion at ground level.
The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get that bright flash of light, followed quickly by a thump. That thump is a shock wave being transmitted through the earth, which moves faster than the air blast, which will come several seconds later, blowing the glass into buildings, causing injury, but also bringing the facades of the building down. So from an event like this, in a built-up urban area, you can have tens of feet of rubble and debris in the streets just from all that material falling in. If you're planning on evacuating people or bringing resources in, you need to understand what that condition is going to be like and how it's going to impact your response.
Anybody going into these zones are going in by foot. They're not going in by car, and they're not going in by horse for a long time. The amount of rubble in an urban environment from a nuclear blast that's at ground level is catastrophic. You've all seen the pictures of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That wasn't a huge bomb, that was a 15 kiloton bomb. He's looking at a slightly smaller one at 10 kiloton range, sizing and a lot of other things because it's a good terrorist type bomb. But if you get hit by a 400 or 800 kiloton intercontinental ballistic missile, which may or may not have multiple warheads, imagine the destruction that will be in the town.
Light damage zone is defined by a couple different areas. The first thing to understand is that even at 3 miles away, glass is being broken with enough force to cause injury to somebody standing behind that window. That bright flash of light causes something called flash blindness. It's not permanent, maybe only 15 seconds or a minute. If you're standing on a street corner, it's not a big deal. But you and everybody around you driving down the freeway at 60 miles an hour is suddenly blind. You can imagine what that's going to do to our thoroughfares.
Now in truth, Toronto drivers probably won't even notice. So if you haven't bugged out, you are facing a long, horrible, dangerous walk. However, blinded, burned, blasted, injured, shocked people will instinctively flee in the opposite direction from wherever they see the cloud, the mushroom cloud going up. They will, the opposite direction as fast as they can, and pushing people out of the way and not stopping initially to help people, not from a nuclear blast bomb. That may not be the right move. So the instinctive thing is just to run directly opposite, 180 degrees away from the mushroom cloud. That might not be the best idea. And now I'm going to do a Dad on YouTube homage and do some pictures. I am not an artist. The bomb's gone off. That's where I am. Instinct says that's where I go. Now if you've got local knowledge, you may not actually decide to go that way because you might want to avoid things like tower blocks, bridges, stuff like that, lakes, you know. Use local knowledge if you can, but I'm talking about instinctive fleeing. However, this is the direction of the wind. This is not the way to go. In this scenario, I want to go that way or that way. Now the other thing in an urban environment, from a sudden and unexpected or even an expected nuclear detonation in the downtown core, the people that are fleeing are actually going to block any hope whatsoever of getting any sort of help into the moderate zone, at least for several days or so. The rubble, the people fleeing who will need help, is going to totally overwhelm people. If it's a one-bomb terrorist event, people will be flown in, we'll get together, but it'll take 48, 72 hours, even longer, for a coordinated, effective, aggressive response to help everybody. If it's multiple bomb blasts, you won't get any help at all.
Flash blindness during the day can go out 10 miles or more. That's the Beltway. So if you're planning on moving resources around, keep in mind, roads are probably going to be blocked. At night, flash blindness can go much further.
As of now, you and your family want to start practicing duck and cover. Remember the 50s? Duck and cover, Bert the Turtle, hiding under your desk at school. All of those things need to be practiced right now. Given what's going on in the world, if you sense or see or feel a sudden flash, you want to throw yourself to the ground, cover your head and neck, but more importantly, cover your eyes and cover any exposed flesh from the direction of the flash if you can. Stay down till the blast has gone by. Practice that now with your family, practice it with the kids. By the way, this I find absolutely sickening. In 2022, that I even have to bring this up, and we actually are discussing the possibility of nuclear war between human beings because of flags is absolutely outrageous, but it doesn't alter the fact you have to.
All this went into trying to define that light damage zone. That light damage zone goes from 1 mile to 3 miles. Most people in that zone are not going to be injured. And the types of injuries that we might expect in that zone are probably going to be lacerations from flying glass, or maybe some minor crush injury from things falling on you. These pictures were taken 1.5 miles away from a solid rocket fuel booster facility that blew up in Henderson, Nevada. It was about the equivalent of a 1 kiloton explosion. And at 1.5 miles away, it still had enough shock to pop that roof of that warehouse in and blow that glass across that office building.
We're going to get back to the case study. We're going to look specifically at fallout. Fallout is if you survive the blast, if you survive the heat wave, if you survive the detonation, and you survive the destruction of the buildings around you, if you manage to get out of the subway or the car that you're trapped in when the bridge collapses on you, then what? There's a thing called fallout. Fallout is just energy, and you can't see it, and you can't feel it, and you often can't taste it, though there is some arguments that you might sense ozone. But basically speaking, without a Geiger counter, you have no idea if the fallout's there or not. So what are you going to do? This has been a 2022 Wolfie the Terrier Twitcher production.